Thousands are expected in D.C., marking the 57th anniversary of the March on Washington. But way before that monumental event, our next guest had been a part of the civil rights fight since he was a child. When he was born 92 years ago, discrimination was actually mandated by law. Reverend Dr. F.N. Williams Sr. is the pastor at Antioch Missionary Baptist Church in Acres Homes. Pastor Williams, a lot of people say, oh, all that stuff with discrimination and separate but equal, that was so long ago. But really, it was in my lifetime, it was in your lifetime. When you came into the world, there were laws in place that advocated separate water fountains, bathrooms, separate public spaces, requirements to vote, different requirements to vote, separate but equal schools, and go to the back of the bus. When was the first time you were aware that things were different for you because of the color of your skin?
I've been a child and fourth generation actually here in Houston, Texas. I was kind of shielded. Your parents tried to shield the children away from it. But I went to a corner store here on, at that time, Parkway store on the corner ship. My mother sent me up there to get some things from the store. And when I stepped in front of a white lady, and the man told me, he put my arm and said, hey, boy, don't step in front of no white folk. Get back in the back line. Well, I couldn't understand it then, so I came on and told my dad. And they explained to me the reality of this day. But by the same token, my dad, he went up there and told the man, don't put your hand on my boy no more. But that was the kind of thing we experienced there.
You followed your father to civil rights meetings. What was your first act of defiance in your mind where you pushed back?
My parents, my grandfather, my father, they always pushed back. They had no fear, and I think that because they felt a strong feeling that they were under divine protection as long as they were right. I never shall forget, a man was running for sheriff, and he came up to my dad's office. At that time, as they always do, seek our vote, They ain't gonna do it in force, but they seek our vote. And he made the mistake and called my dad a boy in his office, and my dad stood up. Well, I always sit around my dad. He always had me in these cases, I think, to groom me, give me understand what's going on. And he stood up, he said, if you don't get your so-and-so out of my office, I will throw you down these steps myself. You ever come here and call me a boy, I'm a man. Well, that kind of stuck with me. So everywhere I go, I'm a man.
All right, as we know, Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on the bus, and that sparked the modern day civil rights movement. It was an open act of, we are going to protest against this, the Montgomery bus boycott. And that's where a lot of us came to know Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. You met him as well. How did you meet him, and what was your role with him?
My father had some relationship with the police department at that time, at being who he was as a community leader in Acres Home. And as a result of it, they kept me shielded away from participating in that, but I got a chance to become a part of Dr. King's team, Southern Christian Leadership Team. And our job was to raise money here for the cause. The first time he came, they didn't want him. The Forward Times and the Black Paper, Defender, Houston Defender, all of them said, we don't need King here. We're doing fine in Houston. We don't need him. Well, the larger community decided, let's put him in the Coliseum. Would you believe in Houston, we couldn't get 500 people in attendance that night. Justin, called Harry Belafonte to come to Houston to do a concert prior to Dr. King's speech. Still couldn't get 500 people in.
Pastor Williams, you were not able to go to the March on Washington, but you were able to watch it on this thing called television, like millions of Americans. What was that moment like for you?
A moment of great pride. I was so thrilled to see a black man stand before thousands of people and the radio world and television world and bring such a dynamic speech. A speech that was inclusive, that was not only holistic, but also spiritual. It was a great moment.
You told me that you were with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. the night before he went to Memphis, and you could hear heaven calling. What did you mean by that?
It was a gripping kind of thing. You're talking about a heartfelt message, and you could feel, I would say, the divine presence of the Holy Spirit speaking through Dr. King as he talked to us. And he told us, it's not gonna be over. I won't see it all, but you've got to keep up the job. When Martin got through, he handed me that capital speech. He said, Floyd, you take this back to Houston. And I still have that speech. It was a great speech. The man was certainly a gift from God. I would call him the Moses for our day. But it looks like our people that got in office failed to help the dream stay alive. They signed some agreements that should not have been signed. They went along with some things they should not have been gone along with. I look at so many things that has happened today that I don't think would have happened if Dr. would have been alive. So that's the reason why I think he was taken out, because if his dream kept leading, because there was a president that said, what can I do? He asked Dr. Moynihan, who was then sociologist professor at New York University. Nixon asked him, what can I do to stop this dream, this king thing? What can I do? He said, create another minority.
What do you think it will take for us to fully realize that dream?
We're not there yet. And I still really feel we're farther back than we were.
One of the messages that you have preached is that empowerment really has to come from the inside out, not the outside in.
Black people need to go back to knowing who they are. And to go forward means self-searching, set your goals, and go after them.
Thank you very much for the work you've done. Thank you very much for your time. And thank you for your perspective.
Thank you.
Pastor Williams went on to say that Dr. King's biggest fear was the dream would not be realized and that politics would bury the true message. Many would agree that's what's happened.